Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Holla Great people, how's it going? I hope that all of you are staying in the tip-top condition. In this marvelous opportunity, I would like to work on my qualitative research method final exam that instructs me to explain you all about the one of the 5 qualitative approach to inquiry. But before I go on to the next explanation, I would like to introduce myself. Well, I am Qoniatuzzakiyah. My ID number is T2019-6188 and I'm from English Education Department 4. Okay, you know that in our previous studies we have already studied or we have already learned about the 5 qualitative approach. So those are narrative research, phenomenological research, grounded theory, ethnography, and case study. So as I conclude from a little bit my explanation about those qualitative approach, for the first, that narrative research explains us about the exploring the life of an individual, and then the phenomenological research is explaining us about the understanding the essence of the experience in each individuals, and then the grounded theory has explained to us about the developing a theory grounded in data from the field, and then ethnography that describes and interprets a culture sharing group, and then the last is case study that we have already learned about the development of the developing the depth or the deeper about the description and analysis of case or multiple cases. So this about my little understanding about the 5 qualitative research approach. Well, then go on to the next explanation is that about what I am going to explain you right now. Okay, I choose the phenomenological research. So here, as we can, or as well known that the phenomenological study or research is describing about several individuals' meaning of their life experience and their shape of concept or a phenomenon. So here, the phenomenologies that I have stated before focus on to describe what all the participants have in common as they experience in the phenomenon. So, the fundamental purpose of phenomenology is to curtail each individual experience with a phenomenon to an universal sense of description. So, the researcher attempts to grab of the very nature of the things that we are going to research about. And also, according to Mustakas in 1994, about the description that I have mentioned before, so the description consists of what the participants or they have experienced and how the participant or they have experienced it. There are 2 types of phenomenology. For the first type is hermeneutic phenomenology, and the second is empirical, or we can say that transcendental, or we can also say that psychological phenomenology. So what does hermeneutical phenomenology is? So it describes about the research as oriented toward life experience, or it interprets the text of life. Before of all, like I have said before about the description, so phenomenology is not only about a description, but it also seen as an interpretive process in which the researcher makes an interpretation of what they have researched before. And then the next is about transcendental or psychological phenomenology. These types focus less on the interpretation, but it is more reversed to the description of the experiences in each participants. Or we can say that the transcendental means that in which everything is perceived precisely as it for the first time. And then go on to the next the type or the synonym that is empirical, or we can also say the transcendental phenomenology. It draws in the book of made by the Georgi in 1985. He states that this kind of type is consists of identifying a phenomenon to study, bracketing of one of the experience, and then collecting the data from several persons that who have experienced that phenomenon. Well then, the description is divided into two kinds of way to be interpreted. Is that for the first is textual description and the second is structural description. So what does the textual and structural description? So it means the textual is what the participant experienced, and the structural description is on how they have experienced in a term of condition, situation, or the context itself. So from this combination of the textual and the structural description is to convey an overall sense of the experience. There are some procedures for conducting the phenomenological research. So for the first element that we should pay attention is the researcher have to determine if their research problem is the best examined using a phenomenological approach. Is like we really pay attention that this approach is suitable, this approach is worth it to be implemented in our research. The second that the researcher have to provide an interest phenomenon of the study in order it affects the reader to read our research, or we can get anything else. Yes, it might be useful also. And then the third is the researcher have to recognize and specify the broad philosophical assumption of the phenomenology. Okay, the next is about data collection. So here, the data are collected from the individuals who have experienced the phenomenon, and the data collection in the phenomenological studies consists of depth interviews and multiple interviews with the participants. On the other hand, the forms of data collection may also be collected in search of observations, journals, art, poetry, music, and other forms of art. According to Feynman 1990, she mentions that the type of conversation, formally written responses, accounts of various experiences of drama, films, poetry, and novels. And then the next is the participants are asked about their experiences in a large explanation or in a broad explanation by asking the general question or open-ended questions. And then go on to the next is the phenomenological data analysis. Now we are stepping to the challenges of phenomenology. As what I have explained to you before, a phenomenology provides a deep understanding of a phenomenon as the participant have experienced. So here, the challenges are first, the researcher have to know more about some common experiences that times or that enables to help them to interpret the research. And then the second is that the researcher have to identify the broader philosophical assumptions, and the third is the researcher have to take care, or the researcher should be careful to choose the participants of the study. Well, maybe that's all what I can explain you about the final exam, that is about the phenomenological research approach. If I have made a mistake, I really beg all your pardons. And the last I say, Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you in the next opportunity, ladies and gentlemen.